In May of 2020, the Google Chrome team announced Core Web Vitals, which are a set of metrics designed to measure the speed, the responsiveness, and the visual stability of web pages. It was a way to give site owners a way to measure user experience on the web. Later that month, on May 28th, the Google search team announced that Core Web Vitals were going to be used as a ranking signal in the Google search algorithm. As usual with these sort of things, SEOs, web developers, and website owners reacted with their normal, calm, and steady-handed approach.
Oh my God! Okay, it's happening. Everybody stay calm.
What's the procedure, everyone? What's the procedure?
Stay calm! Wait. Everybody calm down!
So what are Core Web Vitals? How concerned should you be about them for your websites? And how do you identify Core Web Vitals on your web pages? Those are topics we're going to cover in this video. So let's get started. Hey everyone, it's Mike here from Clicked Marketing, and as I said in the intro, in this video I'm going to go over with you what exactly Core Web Vitals are. There's a lot of talk out there about Core Web Vitals, and you're going to hear more and more about them this year in the coming months. So we're going to talk about what Core Web Vitals are. We're going to talk about my predictions for how impactful it's going to be on website rankings, and we're also going to go over how you can actually identify these metrics on your web pages and identify if you have any problems that you need to address with them. Before we dive into that, if you do find the information in this video useful, please hit the like button. Also, it'd be great if you subscribe to the channel and make sure that you ring the bell so that you don't miss any notifications of upcoming videos. We're going to be talking a lot this year about Core Web Vitals, and you don't want to miss anything. So on May 28th, the Google search team announced that they were taking Core Web Vitals, which are these metrics put out by the Chrome team, and they were going to become a part of the Google search algorithm. They announced at that time that it was going to come sometime in 2021. We didn't really know when. However, since then, we did get this tweet where they announced on November 10th that the update is going to be launching sometime in May of 2021. So as of sometime in May of 2021, Core Web Vitals are going to be one of the over 200 ranking signals that Google uses in their search algorithm. Now, what exactly are Core Web Vitals? Well, Core Web Vitals are made up of three metrics: largest contentful paint, or LCP, first input delay, or abbreviated FID, and cumulative layout shift, CLS. Largest contentful paint is probably the simplest one of all these. It measures how long it takes the largest image or block of text that's visible within the viewport when the page first loads, how long it takes that to load. It's pretty simple, pretty straightforward. Right now, Google has said that under 2.5 seconds is what they consider to be good, and this is all measured on mobile devices. 2.5 to 4 seconds is an area where they say it needs improvement, and anything over 4 seconds is considered poor. FID, or first input delay, measures the time from when a user first interacts with a page. So the first time that they do something on the page, like tap a button or click a link, do something that triggers a JavaScript powered control. So the first time that they interact with the page that way to the time that the browser is actually able to begin processing event handlers in response to that interaction. That's the first input delay. Right now, Google's saying that that should happen within anything 100 milliseconds or less is considered good. 100 to 300 milliseconds is an area that would need improvement, and over 400 milliseconds is considered poor. And the last one is cumulative layout shift, which, just as the name suggests, it measures layout shifts, and really it's measuring unexpected layout shifts. If you've ever visited a web page, especially you'll see this on mobile devices a lot, where the page is loading and then you go to click on something, all of a sudden the screen shifts and like a new ad loads and shifts the page around. Those kind of interactions, those are layout shifts, and Google has decided that too many of those and too much of that is a bad user experience, and they're now measuring that and weighing it into rankings. It's scored from 0 to 1. Anything below, from 0.1 and below, is considered good. 0.1 to 0.25 is an area that needs improvement, and anything over 0.25 is considered to be poor. We're going to talk about how to identify these metrics on your web pages and how you can see how you're doing. But before we do that, I want to talk a little bit about kind of what you can expect when this update does roll out and how impactful it may be, if it's something that you really, really need to worry about. To me personally, I don't think it's going to have a major impact on search results. I don't think we're going to see any dramatic shifts in search results when this update rolls out. I say that for a couple reasons. The first reason is if you look at a lot of the most popular, well-ranking web pages on the internet right now in Google search, they fail these metrics. Like, if you test them against these metrics, they fail horribly. And if these signals became a major ranking signal, it would drastically shift around search results. Just to give you some examples, I just pulled up a couple pages here. So this is a page on Best Buy. I was searching for laptops. And you can see here, I ran it through, and I'll show you how to run it through this test. But the largest contentful paint, which is supposed to be under 2.5 seconds to be considered good, is over 8 seconds. Cumulative layout shift, 0.1, so it's just over the threshold to be considered good. It needs improvement. Total blocking time is the closest thing we have right now to the FID, and we'll talk more about that, but over 6,000 milliseconds, and that's supposed to be under 100 milliseconds. This is on Best Buy, so one of the, again, best ranking, most popular websites out there. Similar search, another page actually showed up in that same search was this one from Tech Radar, and you can see they fail pretty bad too. So largest contentful paints over almost 4.5 seconds, over 2,000 milliseconds here, and they do well in the cumulative layout shift though. And it's not just tech pages and pages about laptops or anything like that. This is Chewy, which is a really popular website for buying dog food online and other dog products and pet products. Largest contentful paint, 11.9 seconds, almost 12 seconds. Not great on the shift, and here they're at 1,700 milliseconds. Amazon, obviously, Amazon ranks for tons of stuff and does really well in search results. Here is a page about office chairs. Largest contentful paint, over 10 seconds. They do pretty well in the other metrics, but really poor here. And then on a specific product page under that search, you can see largest contentful paint over 5 seconds. Blocking time was up a little higher. They still do well on the shift. So, and you can go through, there's tons of websites like this. You have to remember that when Google releases updates like this, their goal is not to radically change the search results. They're just trying to take what they already have, the search results they already have, and just make them a little bit better. Not trying to throw everything out and just destroy the whole universe of search results all at once and start over.
The time has come. Execute Order 66.
The other reason that I believe that this is not going to have a huge impact on search results is there is precedent for these kind of updates. And for what I was just saying about how Google doesn't want to change things drastically. In 2015, February 2015, Google announced an update coming out that was picked up by the community and ended up being called Mobilegeddon. And what this update, it launched on April 21st of 2015, and it was supposed to give priority to websites that display well on mobile devices, so like smartphones, tablets. When this update was announced, again, the SEO community reacted the way it always does with these announcements. But after the announcement, when the update finally did roll out, what we saw in the search results was very little changes. There were sites that were just horrible and performed terribly on mobile, and they never lost rankings. They did fine through the update. Another example, SSL update that was released in October. It was October 1st, actually, of 2017. So this update, Google had announced that they were going to make whether or not a website was using SSL and HTTPS protocol a ranking signal. Again, when this update was announced, SEOs, website owners, everyone reacted the same way they always do. So when this update did roll out in October of 2017, what we saw in the search results was very little changes. It really did not have a big impact. Everyone was frantically switching to SSL and HTTPS, and they thought they were going to see this ranking boost. But raise your hand if you saw a ranking boost when you switched to HTTPS. Yeah, it didn't happen. So this update, I think, is going to be very similar, that we're not going to see a dramatic impact on the search results. I wouldn't expect that if your core web vital scores are good, that you're going to go from number 50 to the top 5 in the SERPs that you're targeting. It's not going to be anything like that. Again, Google's just trying to kind of tweak what they already have going, and just to refine the search results a little bit. That being said, it is going to be a ranking signal out of the 200 plus ranking signals that Google uses. Again, not all those ranking signals are weighted equally, and I don't think this one's going to be weighted very heavily, but it is a ranking signal, so it's not something that you should just ignore. So how do you identify core web vitals on your web pages and on your site? Well, one popular way is to use a site a lot of people are familiar with out there called GTmetrix. GTmetrix, you can run a site through, and I'll just run my site through here real quick. So you just put in the URL, you tell it to analyze, and it's going to measure your page performance using a lot of what it uses is the core web vitals. Okay, so it pulls it through. Now, again, I said this site is popular. I'm going to tell you, though, for core web vitals, I would not use GTmetrix. And the reason why is GTmetrix measures everything by default on desktop. So it's how your site's performing on a desktop device. Google is measuring core web vitals on mobile devices at 3G speeds. It's not giving you the same picture of what Google is going to be using as far as a ranking factor. Now, that being said, core web vitals are a good way to measure the user experience on your web pages. And if you do get a lot of traffic, a lot of desktop traffic, you could use this in order to see how your site is performing on desktop and the kind of experience users are having on your site on desktop. That's completely fine. But for the core web vitals scores in rankings, that as far as a ranking signal that we're concerned with, do not use GTmetrix. Now you can change the settings and you can make it a 3G connection, but what you can't do, unless you have a paid account, you can't use a mobile device. You have to have a paid account to use anything other than desktop. So it's just not measuring the same thing. And you can see in the images here, you'll see a difference when I go to other sites when we're looking at these. You can see that in the snapshots here that it's pulling the desktop version of the website. And these numbers can be drastically different between desktop and mobile. As an example, the one Amazon page I ran through when we run it through here on desktop, largest contentful paint's 4.4 seconds, but over here it was over 10, so it was more than double what it's showing up on here. So these scores are, still bad, but it's a drastic difference between what you see. And this, I actually did switch it to 3G mobile, so it is in that slower connection. but it's still desktop. You can see in the images here, it's pulling through desktop. So this doesn't do you any good for identifying core web vitals and how your pages are performing the same way that Google's measuring them. Two ways that I'm going to recommend you can look at core web vitals. The first one is Search Console now has a core web vitals report. So you could actually take a look here and it'll pull up, it'll give you a report, desktop and mobile. Mobile is what you care about. It'll show you pages that need improvement. And these pages are being tagged with largest contentful paint longer than 2.5 seconds. So it's telling you exactly what's wrong. And you can go in here and you can pull up all the URLs and see which ones are have issues. So that's one way you can look at it. But the other way I'm going to show you is you'll see it's going to give you some more specific data that you can work with. And that way is to use Chrome Developer Tools. So the way that you do this is you pull up your website here, and under More Tools, go to Developer Tools. And you'll get this window. And it, by default right now, loads up in Lighthouse. Lighthouse is a tool put out by Google that will measure web page performance. And one of the things it measures is core web vitals. So we're going to run the report here. You just hit the Generate Report button. And it'll pull up your site then. And it'll show you largest contentful paint, cumulative layout shift. I want to talk about first input delay. Cumulative layout shift and largest contentful paint can be measured, can be lab tested, and that's what this Lighthouse report is doing, where it's looking at lab conditions. How does the page perform? First input delay, though, requires a user interaction to measure it. So it can only be use real world data, and in a testing environment like this, we don't have the data to go off of. It will show up in Search Console under the and there's some ways you can look at it under analytics when you have enough visitors to your pages to collect the data. But what Google has recommended is to instead look at total blocking time. Total blocking time is something that if you optimize for, it's going to have a direct, it usually will correspond to first input delay, improving first input delay. So they're not exactly the same thing, but they're very close. And if you improve total blocking time, you're most likely going to improve first input delay. Total blocking time can be measured in a lab environment like this. So that's why they put it in here. That's what we're going to kind of look at and go off of. But this report then will give you your core web vitals. And again, you can see the difference here where this is loading on a mobile device. Of course, you can see the big picture here, but you can see the screenshots. It's loading on a mobile device versus, as I said, GT Metrics loads on a desktop device. Let's say that you want to improve your largest contentful paint score. How do you find it? There's a misconception out there that largest contentful paint just means everything that shows up in this viewport. And that's not the case. And I've seen SEOs saying this. I've seen a lot of people out there saying this. It is not everything that shows up or sort of above the fold or everything that loads in this viewport. It's a very specific thing. The way that you identify it is if you go to this Performance tab and hit this little refresh button, it's going to load the page and it's going to record some data for us. And a lot of this can be really confusing if it's the first time you're seeing this. Don't get overwhelmed by it. What you need here is under the interactions, we're looking at timings and we're looking at experience. Under the timings, right here you'll see LCP. LCP is largest contentful paint, and when you hover over it, it'll highlight for you what it's looking at. So in this case, it's looking at this sort of section here, how long that takes to load. So that's the largest contentful paint for this page. Sometimes it's a block of text, sometimes it's an image. If we go back through some of these other pages that I had shown you before, in this case, on this Amazon page, it's this picture of the chair. On this Amazon page, it's also a picture. If we go look at the Chewies, I'll let that load. The Tech Radar one, it was an image down here actually, so down at the very bottom. On Best Buy, it was, so out of all these laptops, for whatever reason, it decided that this laptop image, the first one, is the largest contentful paint. And let's see, after Chewy's loaded. So in the Chewy's page, you see it's not always an image, and sometimes it's a very small, it feels like a very small part of the page. But the LCP here is this customer favorites header, basically. And you'll see that sometimes. And even within the same site, you'll see different things get pulled up. Here's just another website that I pulled up. The LCP for this page on that site is this image of this styrofoam densifier. Here's another page on the same site, and you can see on this one, the largest contentful paint is actually this block of text right here, which is great for this page because getting a block of text to load quickly is easier than getting most images to load quickly. So that's how you identify largest contentful paint on your web page. You just hover over the LCP and it will show you what it's counting as the largest contentful paint. Cumulative layout shifts are a little different, and they show up under the Experience tab. If you have shifts, it'll show you the same way. You hover over, it'll show these shifts, these red bars, and it will show you what is causing a shift. Here I have my site, the header shifts, and the logo image. When it loads, it's causing a shift. If we go back to the other sites we were looking at, there's a little bit of a shift here when this image loads, and a little bit of a shift when, this is a good example where you'll often find them. So there's an ad that Amazon runs at the top of the page and a lot of times shifts come from ads where you see the ads, you see all the other text load, and then the ad loads and it shifts things down or up out of the way. On the Chewy's page, there's a big shift happening here, or bigger shift, where this main point, so what it looks like is probably happening in this case is some of this other stuff is loading first, and then this is loading, and it's shifting it downwards when that happens. And then there's a couple shifts on here. There's the text at the top where you can see where the iPhone gets cut off. This is an example of a page that ranks well, even though it's not so mobile friendly. The trending, this little thing at the top here gets cut off. It's causing a shift. And then this text down here is also causing a bit of a shift. And then to go back, the third metric is the first input delay, which again is a field metric, not a lab metric. So we can't simulate it in a lab environment. A real user interaction is required. But again, we're just going to use the total blocking time is what you want to look at for that. And if you're working to improve total blocking time, you're most likely going to improve your first input delay. The biggest culprit for first input delay is just heavy JavaScript execution. Optimizing for JavaScript, how it's parsed and compiles and executes on your web pages will directly reduce your first input delay. You also want to look at some practices like deferring unused JavaScript, code splitting, breaking up long tasks, and a little more complex, but you can use web workers will help to improve FID. Those concepts are, if you're not a web developer, those are the kind of things you want to work with your web developer to identify and improve. But the main ones that people are looking at right now are the largest contentful paint and cumulative layout shift. So again, I don't think any of these metrics are going to have a major impact on rankings.
Surely you can't be serious.
I am serious. And don't call me Shirley.
Like other updates that Google has launched in the past, it's going to be a lot of SEOs running around with their hair on fire.
Oh my God! Okay, it's happening. Everybody stay calm.
What's the
Everybody
procedure,
stay calm.
everyone? What's the procedure?
Stay calm.
Wait.
Everybody calm down.
When the update hits, I think a lot of those SEOs are gonna be disappointed that they did all this work to improve these metrics and saw very little gain from it. That being said, although they may not be a major ranking factor, it is still a good idea to optimize for these because they are good predictors for the kind of user experience that visitors to your web pages will have. And the better you can make that user experience, it's going to have a direct impact on your conversions and your sales, which also is going to keep bringing people back to your site, and indirectly that can help rankings. So that's a little bit about what Core Web Vitals are, what's coming down the road in May when Google releases this update, how you can identify Core Web Vitals on your web pages now and work to improve them. If you have any questions about Core Web Vitals, definitely drop a comment down below and we can discuss it. We will likely be talking a lot more about Core Web Vitals between now and May, and probably throughout 2021. It's probably going to be one of the most talked about topics in SEO for 2021. Make sure you subscribe and ring the bell so that you get notified of any future videos that we put out. And thanks for watching.